$10,000. Well, that's the same as before. I don't know, are some of you guys working with me right now? Because sometimes depending on the start file I have, might not match yours. Does anybody have theirs open right now? Okay. Does yours say 150 here too?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, sometimes. Okay, so let me know if it doesn't match, okay? Because they keep changing it over time. Even after I download it, they might do it. Okay, so we're saying the constraints are that, now we're at an additional constraint, which says, oh, by the way, I'm constraining you so that you should manufacture at least 150 of each model. Now, how does that change? How do you do that then? Well, of course, what that means is now you're going to start by punching numbers like 150, 150. You have to, and then you start doing other stuff in order to see what the cost is. Okay, so now let me flip this back. Let's actually put some numbers in there. In fact, let's do a starting point. Let's put 150, 150 because we're constrained, right? So I'll put 150. I'll do 150. Okay. So now we got cost is 9,000, and then we can start messing around, right, in order to increase the number. Now, before I do anything, though, just to show you, what is it we're trying to do in this case? Keeping the cost below 10,000, but what's our objective function here? So we got a combination. You say keep the cost down, but ideally, too, we're trying to maximize the number of rackets I can manufacture. I haven't gone any further about maximizing revenue right now, okay? Because we don't know what the selling price is. So for now, let's just say I want to maximize total number of rackets, okay? Manufactured. In that case, I would go to here, right, under D6, and I would change the color to gray. Now, I'm going back, I'm going to kind of reiterate that often, although I'm not doing it, there's always this area there's areas that are fixed. Ideally, I should do it. So ideally, what are these? Production and fixed costs. I should color it blue. And again, we do this all the time as a standard format, just so we don't mess up when I'm actually using solver and doing stuff, because blue means it's fixed. Please don't edit and change numbers in it, right? So whatever I'm doing using this spreadsheet, don't mess with it. Pink is exactly where I'm trying to try different combinations. And gray, it always gets to one final cell, which you're either setting it to a number, maximizing it, or minimizing it. Like the gray could be cost, that's our objective, minimize the cost. It could be the right side, but I'm here to try to maximize this objective. I'm trying to maximize the total number of rackets. Okay, now, ready to do this? So you could do it, and you probably would get the answer just as quick. I'm talking slowly, but you will see as we continue to build in the next few weeks, we're going to get more and more complex, but still got these same darn colors. It's still got the same old stuff, okay? So just kind of keep on what we're doing. And what we're going to be doing primarily is building a lot more complexity here. Okay, so where do we go? We got to look for solver. So if I go to the data ribbon, there it is, up on the upper right side. There's something called solver. All right. Okay, so you got solver. I'm going to click solver. And now we suddenly see this baby. And there you go. What's your objective function? So always the first option is exactly that. That's why we already know by highlighting it gray before we do it, so we don't mess up and click some other wrong cell. We're going to go up. I'm going to move over to the gray cell and click it. That's D6. What is it I want to do? It's currently selected at max. That's exactly what I want. If I'm stupid, then I do the next one, which is minimize the number of rackets I'm trying to manufacture. You'll do that for me as well. But I'm going to do that. Now, next slot, the changing cells, I select D4 and D5, because that's the cells that I'm asking it to try different combinations. It's what is going to change numbers in there. That's why we call it a changing cell. All right? So we're going to change that. Now the last thing we're going to do is add constraints. Okay, we're going to add some constraints. And therein lies the constraints, right? So the first one, so I press the add button, okay? And the first thing is the total cost, that's E6, cell reference, I'm pointing to E6. Then I notice that it already has less than or equal to. And what do I want it less than or equal to? Then I go over to the constraint side and I select C11. So you see basically what I'm saying? I said I want this to be less than or equal to that 10,000. Okay? So that's one constraint. So I say, okay, I'm going to add that. I click the add button. That's one. I got two more constraints, don't I? So I might as well add those as well. I'm going to select the first constraint, number of rackets for model 1, D4. D4. This is where you always mess up in the exam if you're not careful. Sometimes go, oh, that's less than or equal to, but we need it to be greater than or equal to. So I'm going to go ahead and click the drop down and look for greater than or equal to. And now I'm going to punch 150, right? And I'm going to add that. And then the last one is D5. Again, that has to be greater than or equal to. And now I picked C13, right? So again, this time I'm picking that one, I put it in here, and then I say greater than or equal to using the drop down, and then I pick 150. Now, if I'm done, I click OK, and I can see all these options are there, and it's a double check to make sure everything's okay. All right. Now, there's a lot of stuff right now. I see cells, sometimes it doesn't. Later on, maybe we'll do some when we have more time. We can do stuff to make sure you don't make mistakes. It could name cells, call it like changing cell 1, changing cell 2. So if you picked it right, you can see it actually says it. So, okay. Now, here's my first rule. Anytime we're about to run any of this, you should always select. Now, there's this thing, make unconstrained variables non-negative. Usually you leave it checked on. Go into more detail. This thing, you have different options. There's evolutionary, simplex, and GRG nonlinear. I always say if you can do it, it doesn't hurt, always do simplex. Now, the reason is that if you end up doing a really, really super duper complex models, it can get to a point where it just keeps crunching and crunching and crunching. So the distinction between using this simplex, maybe because it's simpler, right? But it's mainly because it's linear, it's so much faster. If it doesn't run, then you go to the other ones, which takes more. And that's because there's something called nonlinearity. We're not going to talk about that today. Read it in your book. We will get to it later, hopefully. So, but right now, let's go ahead and run this. So I'm going to solve. I press solve. I'm going to say OK. And we have a solution. Now, we notice what the solution still is, though. It still makes sense, doesn't it? We constrained it to 150, so if I'm going to max out the total number, I do better by just manufacturing more Model 1, because it's so much cheaper to manufacture. But the other thing I don't like, right, is what? We need to add one more thing. So I might add an additional constraint that says, I won't type it, but the quantity has to be int.